Everyone, welcome to our next video, and today we are going to discuss about the defects of eye, that is myopia, hypermetropia and presbyopia. Without wasting any more time, let's get started. First off, let us start with myopia, and myopia means the nearsightedness. Means you can see objects that are close to you, but the objects that are far away from you are tough for you to see. So whatever object you are going to see is going to be very blurry. That is, it is not going to be distinct or not going to be very clear. And that is a general problem that most of the people face. Like for example myself, the spec that I am wearing is to prevent myself from experiencing myopia. So what I am doing is I am wearing a concave lens, and this lens will help me create a clear image of objects that are far away from me. Like for example, now that I am standing and the camera is in front of me, when I am wearing the lens it is clear. If I open the lens, then also it is clear because the camera is very close to me. What I see is behind my camera is a window, and that is far a little bit away from me. And it is very tough for me to see it clearly, and it occurs to be very blurry. That is what happens, and most of you who are watching the video might be experiencing the same thing, that you cannot see objects that are far away from you. So that is what is called myopia. Now let's see what actually happens to the eye during myopia. So let us draw one rough eyeball and see what happens. So suppose this is our eyeball. Here we have our crystalline lens. What happens in this case is this is our eyeball and here is our retina, for example. Now what happens in case of a normal eye is that suppose this is our principal axis, just like in case of lens we did in our previous chapter, and let the object be at infinity. So when the object comes, the ray of light comes from the object. In case of a normal eye, it will focus at the not the radius, the retina. That is a normal eye and the image will be formed at retina. Now what happens in case of a myopic eye? Suppose this is a myopic eye. This is our lens. What happens in this case? The object comes from far away place. Image needs to be formed at the retina. What happens in this case is that it is not formed at retina, rather it is formed in front of the retina. Means the convergence will be before the retina. So the rays of light will go like this and it will form an image here. Okay? So that is what the problem is caused during myopia. So the image is not formed at retina, rather it is formed in front of the retina. Now why does this happen? Now there are two reasons that this could happen. The first one is the whole eyeball may have elongated. Now what happens if it is elongated? If the eyeball is elongated, the retina will move back as usual, the lens will go forward and the retina will move back. And as a result, since it had to meet here, as the retina and eyeball and the lens are going away from each other, the retina will fall back and the image will be formed at this position. So in this case, there is no fault of the lens is perfectly working, but the eyeball has elongated. As a result, the retina has gone back and the image is forming before the retina. Second case is the defect with the lens. Now what happens is, the lens may develop excessive curvature. Now you see, if this is a lens, then its focus and radius, this will be the center and this will be the focus. Now if the curvature is increased, if I increase the curvature of the lens and if the lens becomes like this, what will happen? Center will come, it will shrink, and so will the focus. You see the distance here and the distance here is different. It is a much shorter distance compared to this distance. That is what happens, that if the lens becomes bulgier, means if its focal length becomes shorter, which can happen if the lens becomes too much curved, means the curvature of the lens increases. So in case of becoming like this, if it becomes bulges, if it becomes too much curvier, then what will happen? The focus will shift to the front, just like in this case. The focus was away earlier, but now what happens? Because of its too much curvature, the focus will shrink ahead. Okay, so as a result, again the lens will focus the light at the focus which has been moved forward because of the bulging of the lens. So these are the two reasons why you may experience myopia. Now this focusing or of the ray of light before the retina can be fixed. Now we need lenses to fix, external lenses like these specs. So what we do with this spec is we wear concave lenses in order to prevent myopia. Not prevent, to prevent us from experiencing myopia. So how does that work? So what happens here is, suppose this is our eye, myopic eye. This is our retina, and here is where the image needs to form. Here is where the rays of light need to focus. Now what we do here, we put here a concave lens. Now what does a concave lens do? Now when the ray of light will be coming from an object at infinity or a far away object, now what happens here, we are trying to move the focus back. Okay, so we are trying to push this converging of rays a little bit behind us, behind this position. Now what to do? Since the concave lens is a diverging lens, means the rays will diverge from here, and the convex lens is a converging lens. So it will converge the rays to a particular point, but concave lens will diverge it. So the benefit of using a convex lens, concave lens is, these rays will move outside. Means these rays will go diverge like this. Okay, let me draw this bigger so that it is clearer for you to understand. So this is our lens. What the concave lens will do, it will push the rays outside. Now what happens, as the rays have been pushed outside, now when it converges, it will converge at the right point. Hope this is clear. Earlier what was happening, the ray was coming and it was focusing here. Now we have the same ray is coming, but it is diverged out. And since it is diverged out, for it to focus, it will take a little bit longer distance, because now it is going towards the end of the lens. I hope you can understand this concept. Try to realize this concept. I mean, don't just look at it and just say, okay, this is the diagram. Think about it, feel about it, that what may be happening. Try to visualize the concept, because until and unless you visualize this, you cannot see, because you cannot see rays of light coming to your eye. Okay, so try to visualize this. The ray is coming, it is diverged, and since it is diverged, now it has moved far apart. For it to come close again at one point, it will take a longer distance compared to the previous one, because here there was no diverging of rays, only converging. So it could easily converge at this point. Now as it is far away, it is taking time for it to diverge. It will take more length, more distance for it to converge at a particular point. And using a proper power of this lens, we can adjust the formation of the image at the retina. So that's how we cure myopic disease using a concave lens. I hope this is clear to you. So this is all about myopia. Now let's move on to the next defect of the eye, that is hypermetropia. And hypermetropia is exactly the opposite of myopia. In hypermetropia, you cannot see objects that are closer to you, but you can see objects that are far away from you. You will see some people using reading glass while reading a newspaper. Or if some people, you will see what they do, they take, okay, let me use this book for example. So what they will do, they cannot read the newspaper like this, or any book like this. They will read the newspaper by keeping it further away from them so that they can easily read it. What we do generally when we take a book, for people with normal eye, not me, okay, for me also, because I have myopia and not hypermetropia. What we do, okay, let me take off the lens. What I will do, if I read from here, it is normal, and every guy or girl with a normal eyesight will read a book like this. But someone who is experiencing hypermetropia will not be able to read like this, because as the object is closer to them, they cannot form a clear image. What they form is a very blurry image. So what they do, they try to put it back as far as they can, so that when the object is far away from them, they can see it clearly. So why does that happen? Now that again happens because of exactly the opposite reasons. Let me put my specs back so that I can see clearly. Okay, so let's see what happens in case of a hypermetropia. So let me draw another image of the eye, a rough diagram, and see what happens. Suppose this is our eye. Well, here is the lens. Again, in case of a normal eye, as we have seen what happens. In case of a normal eye, now in this case we will not use a point far away. We will use a point that is closer to the retina. Suppose this is our point where the object is close to the eye. In case of a normal eye, what will happen? It will come like this. The rays of light will come like this. Here is the retina, it will focus exactly at the. Now in case of a hypermetropia or hypermetropic eye, this is our eyeball, here is the retina, our lens. Here will be our point where the object is close to the eye. But what happens is, it will come here, then not be able to focus here, rather it will go behind the retina. It will converge in this point, behind the retina. And again the same problem, blurriness of vision when the object is close to them. So as you can expect, now what we want to do? We want to converge it closer, means we want more converging of rays. So if you want more converging of rays, what sort of lens to use? You guessed it right, convex lens, because we need to converge the rays more. Earlier we used concave lens. Now if we use concave lens here, what will happen? The light will come. If I put a concave lens here like the previous one, it will diverge, and if it diverges, it will meet even back. Let me show you. If I put a concave lens here, the rays of light will come up to here. Let me use a different color so that you can understand. The rays of light will come up to here, then they will diverge different direction. From there, if they have to converge, they will go even back and converge at this point. Okay, so this is not going to solve the purpose. So what we need to do now, let us take the ball. This is going to be our lens. That is the retina. Now as the light is focusing behind the retina, we need to bring it forward, bring it closer. So in order to bring it closer, we need to converge the ray even more. So let's try converging the ray. It is the object. Let us put one convex lens here. What the convex lens will do, it will converge. So double converging will keep the point of meeting of the rays, bring it closer. So here the rays will come. Now instead of going straight, they will converge, and from here it will be easier for the eye lens. Put it back on place, that is at the retina. Earlier what happened, it was here. Look at the black rays, not the blue ones. It was here, and it was tough for the lens to converge it at the right place. It was moving, you were taking much longer of a length. What we did here, since we converged it earlier a little bit, as a result, this lens will now be able to converge it at the right point. I hope you understood. This is just the opposite of the myopia. Now why does this happen? Again the same reason. Either you may have the shrinkage of this eyeball. So why shrinkage? This was the normal one. Now if the eyeball shrinks, then what will happen? The retina will be, if the eyeball shrinks, let me draw with a different color so that it is easier for you to understand. If the eyeball shrinks, then what will happen? This will be the size of the eyeball. What happens? The retina goes back. For the focus of the lens, the retina will go back, and in this case the lens will be completely fine. If the lens is fine, it will be forming its image right at its focus. The meeting point of the rays will be at the focus. So it will try to focus the ray at the retina. But the retina, what has happened? The eyeball totally has shrunk. The retina is now seems that it is outside the eyeball. This is maybe one of the reasons. Exactly opposite of myopia. In myopia, what happened? The eyeball was enlarged, and hence the retina went inside. This time what happened? The eyeball shrinks and the retina goes outside. Okay. Or maybe the defect of the lens. In this case, what will happen? The lens will become too much thin. Thinning of the lens means earlier it was like this, normal lens. Now it has become very thin. It becomes thin, its curvature becomes very less. Means from this position it will become like this. So as a result, what will happen? This will be a part of a bigger circle. This will be a part of a smaller circle. So its center will be here, focus will be here, and for this one, the focus will be here and center will be here. So as you can see, the focal length is much more in this case compared to the focal length in. As the focal length becomes shorter, what happens? The image is not formed at the retina, rather it is formed behind. Okay. So the focal length does not become shorter, the focal length becomes larger, because this is what happens in case of hypermetropia, and this is a normal eye. This is the transition. From a normal lens, it will become very non-convergent. From a normal lens, it becomes very thin, and as a result, the bulging of the lens or the curvature of the lens becomes very less. As the curvature becomes less, its focal length becomes longer. Center of curvature also goes far away. So as a result, instead of forming the image here, as the focal length has moved back, it will form the image here. Okay, I hope you have understood this. If you are facing any trouble, try to go back a little bit in the video and try to watch it again, because you may be confused with both. So try to watch one at a time. First watch myopia, try to understand what happens there. Then move to hypermetropia and try to understand. And try to relate them, because all the things that are happening in these two cases are exactly the opposite. Okay, so try to understand them by watching them separately and understanding them. Draw these diagrams by your hand so that you can easily understand. Okay. Now let us move to another concept. It is the presbyopia. Now presbyopia is a different type of hypermetropia. It is hypermetropia only, but the thing is, in case of presbyopia we think that it happens in case of people who are aged. It is not that it will only happen to people who are aged. It is actually people who are aged generally face this problem. Okay. So what happens in this case, the ciliary muscles become very weak. As the ciliary muscles become very weak, their contraction and relaxation process becomes very clumsy, means it does not perform in a perfect way. So what happens here, it will be same as that of the hypermetropia, where the lens becomes very thin, the curvature becomes very less. So it is just hypermetropia, but in cases of people who are aged. And why aged? Because when you become aged, your ciliary muscles become weak, and hence what happens, the ciliary muscles will always be pulling your lens, and as a result, from a lens which was normal like this, it will become much thinner, and its convergence or its convergence property will decrease and its curvature will increase. This was the normal lens. If you pull this lens, it becomes like this. So when there is defect in ciliary muscle, this sort of transition will take place. This is a normal eye, and this is the eye of a presbyopia, means the lens of the eye. So how do we solve presbyopia, or how do we rectify a presbyopic eye? In order to rectify a presbyopic eye, there is a little bit of confusion because everything is not written clearly in the book. Let me give you an idea of what happens. In the book you will see there is nothing written about what type of lens you need to cure presbyopia. But in the answers that you write in the exam, you will see that it is given what is presbyopia, what sort of lens is required to cure presbyopia, and you will be writing bifocal lens is required to cure presbyopia. But actually just for presbyopia we don't need bifocal lens. Let me tell you, because presbyopia is a type of hypermetropia, and the type of lens we need for hypermetropia is a convex lens. In the same way, the type of lens we will need for presbyopia is also going to be a convex lens. Now why do we write bifocal? What is bifocal? Bifocal lens is the type of lens which has both the convex and concave properties. Let me show you with an example. Suppose this is a spectacle, normal spectacle. Okay, suppose this is one of the lenses. You will see in cases of old people, if you have grandmother, grandfather or any aged uncle or aunt in your house, what you will see, they have a lens, this spectacle, and they will have one part like this at the bottom of the lens. This is the convex part and this is the concave part. So this part is the concave one, this is the convex one. This is what is required for people who have both the defects. So why I told aged? Because aged people generally develop both defects. They cannot see objects that are far from them, they cannot see objects that are close to them. Okay, so that is why they need both types of lenses, so that they can see the near object and the far away object clearly using both the lenses. Okay, so now what I am trying to say here is that in case of presbyopia, why we write that bifocal lens is required to cure presbyopia? This is because in general, people who are aged and suffer from presbyopia also suffer from myopia. You will see in most of the cases, most of the older people who have defect in their eye, they can't see objects that are far away from them and they cannot see objects that are close to them. And as a result, what happens? They experience both the defects and hence they need this type of lens, bifocal lens, because bifocal lens will help cure both the defects. It is why we write that in case of presbyopia, we need a bifocal lens, because presbyopia happens in old people, and generally in old people, they have both types of defects. But if you ask me, my personal suggestion as to what type of lens is required only for presbyopia, that should be a convex lens. Convex lens will cure presbyopia. But in general, again I am repeating, in general, people who are suffering from, who are aged, not suffering from, people who are aged, they require this bifocal lens, because if they suffer from presbyopia, at the same time they suffer from myopia, this is in general. And since it happens in most of the cases where a person suffering from presbyopia also suffers from myopia, they are given a bifocal lens. Just for example, my mother, she used to suffer from myopia, and now she has developed presbyopia, and that's why she requires this bifocal lens. It is not that she only suffers from presbyopia and that's why the bifocal lens. She was a previous patient of myopia and now she has developed presbyopia because of her age. As a result, she needs a bifocal lens. So That is all about the defects of the eye, the three defects: myopia, hypermetropia and presbyopia. Hypermetropia and presbyopia are exactly the same thing but occurs because of different reasons. Hypermetropia may happen to anyone, but presbyopia only happens to people who are aged, because as you grow old, your ciliary muscles become weak and hence there is a defect in the lens. So I hope you understood the video. I hope all the things are clear to you. If there is any confusion, you are free to ask me anywhere, either in the app or to directly to me through WhatsApp or in the comments, wherever you want to do. So thank you everyone for watching, and until next time,